You should have Chapter 4 note packet on your desk. Before we get started with today's lesson, I want to just reference tonight's homework. So here's your homework for tonight. It's the yellow homework practice A worksheet. You are to do the entire worksheet, front and back. And this is due on Friday. You will have time today in class to work on this. So thank you for watching my video today. Basically, I'm going to be covering 4.1 in this video, and in this there's going to be 3 videos that I'm doing. I'm going to do 4.1, and then I'm going to do the practice problems from 4.1, so practice problems, and then I'm going to start 4.2. Okay, so those are the 3 videos that we're going to be working on today. So yesterday, during first period, we started lesson 4.1, and I want to reference our learning objective. We're going to write equations in slope-intercept form. I'm going to review using linear equations to solve real-life problems. I'm going to actually do that in class with all of you. So yesterday, we were looking at writing equations in slope-intercept form. You need to remember that when I'm talking about slope-intercept form, that I'm talking about y is equal to mx plus b. And you are going to be given 3 different ways to write equations in this form. The first method or way is you are going to be given the slope and you're going to be given a y-intercept. And from those 2 pieces of information, I'm going to be able to put them in for m and b, and then write my equation of the line. We're also going to be looking at using a graph. So using a graph will allow me to either find the slope from the graph or calculate the slope from the graph. I could do it 1 or 2 ways. And the third way is I'm going to be given 2 points as ordered pairs, and I'm going to need to be able to, 1, find the slope, and then find the y-intercept using the points. So I'm going to quickly go over what I did yesterday in class. And you're going to notice that I've got example 1 here, and this is already filled out because this is what we did yesterday, but I'm just going to quickly review it. We're supposed to write an equation of a line, and we are going to be given the slope and the y-intercept. So we need to know that we need to write it in this format of y is equal to mx plus b. Noting what? That m is equal to slope and that b is my y-intercept. You also need to remember that when I am talking about my y-intercept, we are talking about an ordered pair where x is 0 and y is actually, I'm going to reference this as my b. The other thing I want you to remember, and I talked about this yesterday in class, that b is also my starting point or my initial value. This is very important when I talk about real-life word problems. Okay, so in A, we are told that the slope is -3 and the y-intercept is 1/2. From this, I can now reference that m is equal to -3 because that's what I'm being told, and that the y-intercept is 1/2, therefore I know that b is equal to 1/2. Therefore, if I have m and I have b, I can write the following equation. Y is equal to -3x plus 1/2. How do I know that? Because I know that the -3 is my m and the 1/2 is my b. Moving on to b, it says now that my slope is 0 and my y-intercept is -2. So now I know from this information that my m is equal to 0 and my b is equal to -2. I then go in and I'm able to write y is equal to 0x minus 2. Where did I get the 0 from? The 0 came from my slope. So we all know that 0 times anything is simply 0. So I don't need to write it. I can simply write y is equal to -2. And we saw this in chapter 3 because we are being asked to graph that. Well, I drew a quick little sketch right here of what the graph looks like. Here's my x and y axis lines, and here's my -2 right there, and I draw a line through it. So that is my horizontal line, which I know all horizontal lines have a slope of 0. Then I asked you to go in and do number 1, and this should be number 2 right there. You can just cross that out. So you're supposed to write the equations of the line there. Then what I wanted you to do is write 2 summarizing statements. So if you can make sure you do that, that would be terrific. Now I'm going to turn the page, and this is where I actually created a secondary insert for you. We noticed yesterday that my graphs didn't print. So the sub for today should give you this new sheet of paper, and this new sheet of paper needs to be inserted right here. It's 2-sided, page 6 and page 7. So what I'd like to do is go through this now to show you what I was doing yesterday. And this is just going to reinforce your learning. So now we're given graphs right here, and we're going to use the graph to write an equation. So what are the 2 things that I need in order to be able to write an equation? I need the slope, which I know is m, and I need the intercept. What intercept are we talking about? We're talking about the y-intercept. And I know the y-intercept is my b. Alright, so now let's go ahead and let's get started right here with this first example. Notice that I've got 2 points. And from these 2 points, I could calculate the slope. So yesterday, I simply used the graph. Well, I'm going to actually go in right now, and I'm going to use the 2 points to show you. So I'm going to go ahead and label. I'm going to label x1, y1, and x2, y2. And in this example, I'm actually going to calculate the slope using my 2 points. So I'm going to go 3 minus 3 over x2, 4, minus 0. Notice I'm using this formula right here, which is the slope formula. So I'm going to go ahead, and I am now going to simplify, which is 3 plus 3, which I know is equal to 6, over 4 minus 0, which is 4, over 4. And I'm going to notice that I want to simplify that. I get 6 over 4, which means I'm going to simplify that down to 3 over 2. And what did I just do? I calculated the m, my slope. So now I have my m, which is great. So I've got m. So the other thing, what we did yesterday, is I said, what do you notice about this graph? Well, being good detectives that you are, somebody noted, oh, that I see that I've got a y-intercept right there. So I want you to remember that whenever my line crosses the y-axis, I have a y-intercept right here, and you need to remember that that negative 3 is my b. So now, I have my b. Where did I get my b? I read it from the graph. So, I have the 2 most important pieces that I need in order to be able to write my equation of the line. Remember, my equation of the line is y is equal to mx plus b. Therefore, I'm able to write y is equal to 3 over 2x, can't forget my x, minus 3. Because all I'm doing is I'm using it just like that. And I wrote my equation of the line using the graph. And in this example, I actually calculated slope using the 2 points. In this second example, what I'm going to do is I'm actually not going to use the slope formula. I'm actually going to just use my graph. Because you could do it either way, whichever way you're more comfortable doing. So in this case, I'm going to notice, I'm looking for another point here that I could possibly use. I don't, so I'm going to use the 2 points they gave me. And I'm going to count. I'm also going to notice that my line is going down. If my line is going down, then I've got a negative slope. So I'm going to go ahead and count down 1, 2, 3. So going down 3 means I'm at negative 3. And now from this point, I'm going to count over on the x. What did I count? I counted 4. Therefore, I'm able to get my slope, m, is equal to negative 3 over 4. So again, I used my graph, and you could do it one or two ways. It doesn't matter, whichever way you find is easier. Now what I need to do is go in and take a look. Remember what I said? We're looking for, what else do I need for my y is equal to mx plus b? I need my y-intercept. So I'm going to notice right here, I have when x is 0, y is 2. Therefore, I know that I've been given my b. So I've got b is equal to 2. Now I have the two most important pieces that I need to write my equation of the line. So I can write y is equal to negative 3, 4 x plus 2. So there it is right there. Sorry, I had to pause for just a minute. So now what I'd like to do is make sure that you're able to do this on your own. So on flipping it over to page 7, I'd like to make sure that you do both this example and this example on your own. Okay? Then down here, I'd like you to make sure that you go in and summarize what we just did and what was the difference between example 1 and example 2 that we did. What pieces of information were you given in each of the two examples? How are they same and how are they different? This should be different, not difference. Alright, so now we're going to move on, and I'm going to ask you to turn to page 8 in your note packet. So we're now on page 8, so shuffling pages around. And now, what do you notice? That now we're going to be looking at example 3, and in example 3, it says we are now going to use points to write equations. Think back, what have we done so far? We were given the slope and the y-intercept in example 1. Example 2, we were given a graph. Well, now all we're given is points. So, let's go ahead and do these first two examples. So, we're supposed to write an equation of the line. So, what does that mean? Equation of the line. You need to make sure whenever I'm talking about an equation of the line, I'm talking about y is equal to mx plus b. So, we're supposed to write an equation that passes through the given points. So that means I'm given 2 points. So, step 1, very first thing I need to do is I need to find the slope. So, what I like to do first, before I get started, is I like to go in and I need to label my points. x1, y1, x2, y2. Now I've got everything labeled, and I can go ahead and start putting those values into my formula. My y2 is negative 1 minus y1, which is 5, over x2, which is 0, minus negative 3. I'm going to go ahead and continue to simplify. So I get negative 1 minus 5 is negative 6, over, this becomes a plus, so 0 plus 3 is 3. I'm going to continue to simplify and know that negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. What did I just calculate? I calculated my slope, and I need to remember that my slope has got a letter that I use, and that letter is m. So I've got my slope is m, which is great. I need that in order to find y is equal to mx plus b. So now it says I need to find the y-intercept. Well, you need to remember that the y-intercept is b. So now, I want you to go back and I want you to look at my two ordered pairs right here. Got negative 3 and 5 and 0, comma negative 1. Hey, wait a minute, right there. This is my y-intercept. I'm going to write this, y, comma negative 1. And I'm going to note that x is 0, y is equal to negative 1. That's where my line crosses the y-axis. So therefore, I know that negative 1 is my b. So that's good. So I have my m, I have my b. So now I can write my equation of the line. I can write y is equal to negative 2 x minus 1. There is my equation of the line. So now let's look at the next example. Example B. Again, I'm given 2 points. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the slope. So what did I do? In my previous example, I labeled my points. Oops, that's y1. So this is x2, y2. And I'm going to go ahead and pull my values and use this formula. So I've got negative 5 minus a negative 5 over x2, which is 8, minus 0. I'm going to remember that this becomes a plus because negative, negative, which means I've got negative 5 plus 5, which I know is equal to 0, over 8 minus 0 is 8. So 0 over 8, and you need to remember that any number where 0 is the numerator, 0 divided by any number is always equal to 0. What did we just calculate? We calculated my slope. My slope is 0, therefore we also know that slope is m. So in this case, I know that m is equal to 0. So please remember that an m is equal to 0 is going to give me a horizontal line. Okay, so I've got it right here. M is equal to 0. So now let's go, and it says, oh, find the y-intercept. It says, hint, what do you notice about one of the ordered pairs? Oh, bingo. Ordered pairs right here tells me I got 0, comma, negative 5 right there. So I know that negative 5 is my B because that is where the line crosses the y-axis. So now I've got the 2 most important things that I need. I've got my M and I've got my B. So I can go ahead and write my equation up. Y is equal to 0x minus 5. And as we all know, that if you were to give it to me like that, I'm okay with that. But I also want you to know that this, I don't have to write this. I can simply say, you need to get comfortable with this, that y is equal to negative 5. And I know from that equation that y is equal to negative 5, that I'm talking about a horizontal line where the line is going through negative 5 and it goes like this. Alright, so now what I'd like you to do is make sure, I want you to try it, I want you to go in and I want you to do this example right there. Practice monitoring progress. You're supposed to write an equation of the line. You're given 2 points. Remember what I mean by equation of the line is y is equal to mx plus b. Okay. So make sure you do that. And then what I'd like you to do is go in and summarize what we've just done, writing steps to write an equation, and use sequencing language frames. So that means above the whiteboard, I've got some posters, and you're supposed to find the sequencing language frames. And you're going to go like step 1, step 2, step 3. What do you do first? What do you do second? Alright, so now what I'd like you to do is turn the page. We are now on the last example in this lesson, which is example 4. Now we are going to be writing a linear function. So you need to remember that whenever I see this word linear function, function means f of x. Well, we learned in chapter 3 with function notation that f of x stands or equals y. And I even note it right here. Remember that f of x is equal to y, and therefore ordered pairs can be written. What exactly do I mean by that? So let's take a look at this first example. It says we're supposed to write a linear function with the values f of 0 is equal to 10 and f of 6 is equal to 34. So right down here, I want you to remember that if I were to write f of x is equal to 10, well, what did I have in for x? I had 0. So this is my x, and we know that f of x is equal to y, so I can write an ordered pair. What's my ordered pair? I'm going to write it right underneath here, even though I've already given it to you. 0, 10. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to do the exact same thing here. I know that this means f of x is equal to y. So what do I know? I know that 6 is x, and which number is y? 34. So I wrote 2 ordered pairs based on function notation. And now it says, so once I've done that, think about what we were doing earlier in example 3. We were given 2 points, and I need to write an equation from those 2 points. Well, please remember that I could go in and I could label these points. In fact, I can label it x1, y1, x2, y2, and I can go ahead and calculate the slope, which is what I'm supposed to do in step 2. So I'm going to go ahead and do y2, which is 34 minus 10 over 6 minus 0. What is this equal to? 24 over 6. Continue to simplify. This is equal to 4. What did I just calculate? I calculated that 4 was the slope. And what is the letter that I use when I work with slope? That's my m. So I've calculated the m. So now it says I'm going to find the y-intercept. Well, what do you notice about one of the ordered pairs? I'm going to notice up here that one of these ordered pairs has got x is 0 and y is 10. Therefore, I'm going to write it down here just so you know. So if I have a 0 in the x and I have a number in the y, therefore I know that my 10 is my b. Remember, I have the 2 most important things that I need in order to be able to write my equation. Therefore, I can write. Notice that I'm now going to use f of x because I'm talking about a function. Therefore, I'm going to write f of x is equal to 4x plus 10. So, I've written a linear function finding my x's and y's from my function notation, calculating the slope, finding my y-intercept, and then taking all that information and writing it in function notation. So now, I want you to go ahead and try it on your own. Practice writing a linear function. Here are the values. Remember, what is f of x equal to? F of x is equal to y. Can I write an ordered pair based on that? Go ahead and try that on your own, and we are done with lesson 4-1. Great job, everybody. I want you to watch the second video where I go back and I do all of the practice monitoring progress problems for you to double check your work.